Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Today you're going to hear from a rep, and we're going to talk through how do you do the complex sale, and in his case, medical equipment. Now, this is a really complex sale. You got doctors, you got hospitals, you got all these standards, and how do you get in? How do you get the conversation started? So we're going to talk through this. I think you're really going to enjoy hearing how other people are having success and what works in this complex sale. Too many of us make the mistake of trying to treat the complex sale just like a bigger, simple sale. Simple sale being single decision maker, single sales call. And we think the complex sale is, you just follow up. You give a proposal, and then you just follow up and hound them until they order. And that can work sometimes. But most of the time it goes to what everybody calls no decision, which is essentially just a no masked as something else. So we're going to get into the details here. I think you're really going to enjoy this. I'll sum it up at the end and give everybody who's in the course an update. If you want to get into the course, go to b2brevenue.com. B, the letter B, the number 2, and then B, revenue.com. Also, make sure you're checking out Co-Video. Co-Video is crushing it. Video emails is a thing of the future. And Pipedrive. Pipedrive is the official CRM of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. It's the easiest, simplest, most powerful way to keep track of what you're doing. Integrates with your calendar and your email. Super simple, visual, none of the other manual monkey work. All finishes out your contact information, and they're adding an AI assistant. Unbelievable for the price. Let's get into the interview. Hey, Will, thanks for joining us today as a way of getting started. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, good morning. It's great to be here. Well, let's see. I'm a 46-year-old male, about 5'9". No, I'm kidding. Spent my entire career in sales. Right out of college, went to work for a great company called ADP.
Yep.
Got some incredible training. Went on to be a sales trainer. Worked in a few different divisions. Spent 6.5 years there and went into the surgical implant business as a rep. Stayed in healthcare ever since. I've done a multitude of different things in the healthcare sector, whether it's surgical implants, nationalizing a lab, co-founding a genetics company, and even being a little bit in healthcare IT. So I've done a lot. I would say the last 15 years has primarily been on the healthcare side of the business.
Yeah. Was that by accident or on purpose or just?
No, it was all planned. As crazy and creepy as that sounds, right? I met a gentleman when I was young in college who was a very sharp individual, and I wanted to kind of be like him, and I want to know what he did. And so he was in the surgical implant industry. So I said, how do I do that? And he says, go work at Xerox, Pitney Bowes, or ADP, knock out 2 or 3 years, and then hopefully you can make the jump. So I went to ADP. My 2 to 3 years turned into 6.5 years. And then I went into a startup surgical implant company selling implantable spinal cord stimulators, and got promoted from that company into a regional manager role. Was responsible for building out a sales team from scratch in South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And we got acquired. And after that, I went on to be a VP of sales for a lab. And it was all planned. Like, I've always known I wanted to be in healthcare. The body fascinates me. What medications can do to the body, what implants can do to the body. So it was all planned, as whack as that sounds.
Now, it's a pretty tough market, isn't it? Because are you selling to doctors? Are you selling to hospital administrators, hospital?
Yeah, with all of the roles, all of the above.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I meet a lot of young people, and I know you talk to a lot of young people too, and they're hungry and they're in sales. They're like, you know what? I want to be in medical device sales, right? Because it's sexy. You can make a lot of money. It's a challenge. It's super challenging. But the hardest part of medical device is not actually getting up at 5 a.m. and grinding every day. The hardest part is actually getting in to that industry.
The industry, or to talk to the doctor, or
to get in, to actually get the job.
Yeah.
Right. So B2B reps that have a strong sales training right? They've sold copiers. They know how to bang on doors, get a million no's, a million rejections, but they know how to do a consultative sale. Those individuals have a shot starting at a very low level in the surgical world, or what people would call the medical device world. And the hardest part, like I said, is just getting in. Once you get in, what I found was, I thought, wow, hey, I made it. I'm going to be a medical device rep. I'm going to sell to surgeons in the OR, and I just hope I can keep up. That was like my mentality. But what I found out was, once I got in there, 90% of those reps did not have the sales training background that I did. And they were kind of pulling the old school salesman approach of, hey, you want to play golf this weekend? And, why don't we do dinner tomorrow night? Just relationship BS. And that is a big part of it. But the actual tactics of how to gain access and how to add value and establish rapport and build trust, and those were some skill sets that I was kind of surprised weren't really there.
And what was the mix between inbound and outbound? Was there any inbound, or?
No, it's
100% outbound.
Totally. Seek, find, and grind, right? So you're literally cold calling, and I think that's why they like the hardcore B2B reps. In fact, I know that's why. There's always going to be an incumbent vendor that they've been working with for years. They've had deep relationships where you do, the physician will invite you to their kids' birthday parties, and you're inviting them to your wedding. And so years and years of that's really hard to take down. Yeah. So you better have some disruptive technology. You better be very likable, credible, relatable, and trustworthy. And you better have some badass sales skills.
So let's get into that. How would you get in? Let's say you're going up to Dr. Brian over here, and I have no awareness of what you do. Right. Perfect match. How would you get to talk to me?
Well, you would have to you'd have to get permission to be in the hospital, right? And that's another set of hurdles. But once you get clearance within the hospital through your company, you basically are waiting at the scrub sink in the operating room. I swear to God, you're waiting at the scrub sink. You're looking through the window, and you're watching the surgery go down. And your competitor is in there with him, and your competitor sees you in the window, just waiting. And then when he walks out or she walks out, they give you stink eye because they know what's going on. And then, the physician's coming out of the case. They're probably exhausted. They got to run to another case, but you've got to find something so compelling, like people talk about an elevator pitch. I'm talking, a fraction of that time. You got 5-8 seconds. Yeah. And so what line you cast out there better have a strong hook.
And what would interest them? It's not saving money. It's saving lives, being able to move their career forward or save more patients.
Yeah, it could be any number of things depending on their specialty. Yeah. Some surgeons just want a disruptive technology that will change the game. Yeah. Some want something that will be easier to use and make them go from case to case faster, so they're not spending as much time in the operating room. And then depending on whether or not they're employed by the hospital or they are independently running their own practice, then they'll be concerned about, well, how can we partner up and how can you help me grow my business?
Okay. So, and you found that more effective than trying to get into their office?
Well, that's the other side. So it's a two-prong approach, right? You've also got to do that. And that's so when they're in their office, they've got set times, and you've got to, kind of schmooze the people at the front, find out what the schedule is, when he or she as a physician is going to be at what office location. Yeah. Make sure you show up during those times. Unfortunately, you're going to have to sometimes bring in the lunch just to get 30 seconds of their time. Yeah. Right. So, and then you also have to do what we call the total office call. You've got to be besties with the gatekeeper. You've got to know all the nursing staff, the MAs, and you basically have to be a part of their team before they'll even help get you in front of that doctor. So it's a process. There's no question. And you've got to deliver some value for everyone at every level. So it's a great way to become a well-rounded salesperson, I would say.
Yeah, because I always thought I never sold a single medical product. I was always on the IT side, so I was dealing with people with different issues.
Right.
I always thought, doctors are selling to lawyers. When you're selling to people who get paid based off of mostly their time, or their time is a very limited asset. Like if you go into a dentist, they have 4 chairs in a row, and the guy just walks from room to room, and everybody gets everything ready for them.
Correct.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure you're like one of those rooms. It's
yes.
Like, okay, today I have 5 minutes to learn about what's new.
Yep. Yeah, as sales reps, that is exactly the role that they have to play, right? It takes time. These are busy people. These are very important people, and most times they know that they're important. So they're going to just keep running, and what you have to bring to the table is not that important. So it's got to be.
There's no active pain on their part. Is that true?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I don't know medical sales that well. And in the hierarchy, is like pharmaceutical sales kind of the bottom, or is it?
There are a lot of, like sales, there's so many different levels or layers of sales, right? Are you selling vacuum cleaners door to door, or are you selling, devices on how to split the atom? I don't know. So the healthcare world is very similar to that. Yeah. There are, you could say, well, I'm in medical sales. Okay, well, that could mean a lot of things. Well, what do you sell? Well, I sell oxygen tanks to hospitals, right? So that's one level. And there's another level of, I sell like sutures and needles and bandages to doctors' offices. And then there's more intense like equipment where, in fact, there's a hot new technology out right now in the dialysis world that is game changing. And I don't know what many people know about dialysis, but usually those patients have to go to a dialysis center and spend many hours, and it just wipes them out, the process they go through. And they come out of there just completely left with no energy. Now there's this little box that has completely revolutionized the industry. It's quicker, it's more efficient, and it's easier on the patient. Yeah. So that is what we call capital sales. That is a different level. And then there's the surgical side, which is usually implants or some kind of electrocautery device or something that would be used during a procedure.
And what was the sales cycle like? Let's say you met the doctor at the scrub place. He had the latent pain went to active pain, where he had a patient that he felt was a good match for what you're talking about. Then what would happen?
Yeah, so like let's take the spine world, for example. The relationship that a surgeon bonds with their rep over time is just intensely deep, like I said. But let's just say that they're using these things called pedicle screws, and this is to stabilize the spine. And maybe he's having a problem over and over with this type of screw, and it keeps breaking. Yeah. And then he sees you out in the scrub sink. He knows you've been coming by the office. He knows you've been hustling his staff trying to get in. He might give you a crack just because you're there at that time when he's frustrated. He's like, all right, this is the tipping point. I need to try something different. It's timing, it's luck of the draw, and it's just relentless pursuit to try and win.
But then that's not a sale. You have interest. How does he evaluate it to see if he wants to make it part of his practice?
Right. So that's not a sale. That's called an opportunity or a chance. He's throwing you a bone, right?
That's 90%.
Right. I'm just not asking for a handout, just a hand, right? No. So in that scenario, he would try your screws or your plates, pins, whatever you've got, rods. And if it went well, you'd see him at the scrub sink and I'd say, Doc, so what'd you think? Oh, it was pretty good. Oh yeah. What'd you like? What didn't you like? And you have that typical sales conversation. Yeah. And if it went well, it might open the door for you to do it again. Yeah. You have to seize that moment. If it didn't go well, you're done.
Now, how about as far as, are they the economic decision maker, or they're the technical decision maker, meaning that they don't buy it, the hospital buys it, or do they buy it?
Excellent question. So most physicians and surgeons...
If I can ask you to put your mic near your mouth.
Oh. most physicians and surgeons today are employed by a hospital.
Okay.
So they're never the economic buyer.
Yeah.
If they own their own practice and they're doing procedures in their practice, or maybe they own a surgery center and they're doing procedures there, then they're the financial buyer. And boy, do they care about that number.
Yeah.
So what I really found amazingly interesting coming from B2B to the device world was that your end user buyer, the user buyer, never has to pay for it.
Right.
Which is crazy. Like what other sales job is there where that's your audience?
I sold to the government, and
Ooh.
yeah, that was the good part, right?
Okay.
So, you have things like 9/11 happen, and all of a sudden, they tell certain manufacturers, you do not sell anything to anyone else until we have everything we need.
Wow.
And then send us a bill.
It's kind of nice.
Well, medicine, you're saving lives. And if the doctor says, I need this, and then is it up to the hospital to say why they can't do it, or?
It is. So the end user is the physician. They want the best technology and they want a great, competent rep. But obviously, before that can even get in his hands, we as an entity or a company have to get approved by the hospital. Okay. And there's a whole process that is involved in that, right? To go in front of these committees and SMAC committee and present your case and provide clinical data as to why your device is different, why it's better clinically, and showing facts and data that proves that.
Wow.
Then, compared to what they already have. And that's a big, big process. And so you've got to build champions within that hospital or within that surgical team that will speak for you to help kind of back you up. So if you can get that back up from the surgeons, if you've got that clinical data that's relevant and game-changing, that's step one, step two. And then step three is going to be the financial hurdle.
Yeah.
Because they're going to look at you and they're going to say, well, hey, you've got XYZ widget. It costs X, but these two competitors of yours have the same widget. This is what they tell you, whether it's the same or not. It's the exact same widget. Yeah. And they're 20% less because they're a corporate conglomerate and they give us massive discounts.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different games you got to play. It's a fun world for sure.
And give me a sense of the time. Is it, let's say when there is active, you got the person's attention, they're interested, you're going through the hospital process. Mm-hmm. Is that 9 months, a year, longer?
The farther back in time you go, the quicker and easier it was. Nowadays, that process could take anywhere from 1 month to, worst case scenario, probably 12 months.
Yeah.
It just depends. And healthcare, you and I both know this, has changed so much in the last 10 years.
It's turning into a nightmare, isn't it?
It is. And It's kind of this Pandora's box that no one really has the answer of how to fix. So there's just so many different levels and layers that we have to climb through to make things work. Even though, you've got the best product on the planet, it's going to help thousands of patients. Man, there's a lot of hoops to go through now.
Right, because it's not like capital equipment where, there's an ROI.
Correct.
Right? Yes, you're saving somebody's life, but if that person's life can't afford it, then who can? Now we're pushing it to the government, but the government can't afford it either. Let's face it.
No.
Is
17 trillion a lot of debt? I don't know.
Compared to me, yes.
Right.
Compared to most people, no.
Yeah.
And I think that's the paradox that we're creating with all this great medical equipment. Mm-hmm. Is that, the number of people that can afford it is pretty limited.
It is.
But the people who need it it's
all of us.
Very elastic. Right.
Yeah.
And all this negotiations. And then, because then you have to ask, why does the hospital care about the costs? Because they're passing it on to the patient.
Right. And so
they hope to pass it on to the patient.
Right. Well, right. You would think that it's a simple process, right? It's like, all right, this costs X. We'll pass that on to Brian's Blue Cross Blue Shield policy, and we'll get reimbursed as a hospital, and we're even, right? Or maybe we're even up.
Yeah.
In some cases, that is true, and they do make a profit. But there are other times where, depending on your level of insurance or who your carrier is, they completely jam the hospital.
Yeah.
And then there's the worst case scenario of, the patient comes out, says, oh my gosh, I was admitted for 2 nights in the hospital and my bill was $38,000 or whatever. And they're freaking out because they can't believe it. But what people don't understand is that, they think these hospitals are making billions and millions of dollars, and they're not. They're scraping by at 1% and 2% profit margins at the end of the year, because for every one of you or I who walks in the door, there are 2, 3, nowadays maybe even 4, who has no insurance.
Yep.
And they don't pay. They
pay.
walk out with that $38,000 bill. They make $28,000 a year, and they're never going to pay that back. So the hospital has to eat that.
Wow.
And I don't know, what the government can do about it. They're not going to do anything about it. These private insurers, they're here to make a profit, and the hospital is just kind of stuck sitting there holding the bag of, man, how are we going to survive and make this work?
Well, that's it. Because it's not like a restaurant where you want lobster, but you can't afford lobster. You go to the hospital, it's life or death. So it's at that emotional survival level that everybody's, the urgency is there.
Right.
Yeah. Give us an idea of the pricing. Are these $100K deals? Are they $1 million deals? Are they?
So they're all over the board. You mentioned capital equipment earlier, which is a big sector of it. And those can be 6-figure deals every time, sometimes in the millions, right? Depending on, did you sell it to one location, or do they have, there's some hospital systems that have 28, 50 locations now. Yeah. Did you get that whole deal? And then you're talking a $2-3 million deal. It's insane. And then as far as going way down market to just basic procedures where maybe there's just like an interventional scope or something like that costs a couple $100. Yeah. My biggest stint in the OR in the surgical world was an implantable spinal cord stimulator. And those, just the device itself, probably about that time, $24,000.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Sure. And would they hold inventory, or was it purely on demand?
For things that are that costly, they usually want that on demand.
Yeah. With a pre-negotiated agreement of some kind?
Correct. If they're a device or an instrument that's used frequently and it's less expensive, they'll keep that on the shelf.
Yeah.
And they'll just, the nurses will plug and play, and the scrub tech will walk around and give the physician what they need. If it's a little bit more costly, we or the sales rep would bring that into the OR. So they're responsible for not just selling, closing, managing their deals. They've got to manage their own inventory as well.
Yeah. Now, for the people listening that say, hey, I flunked out of biology in junior high, how much medical education did you need?
Literally 0. But, it was because I went to a startup that was very aggressive. Yeah. And I was a very hungry young man who was well-trained. And those two things at that particular time married up really well. This was an organization that believed that, hey, you can be, we don't care how clinically sound you are or who you know. It was more about, listen, who are you as a person? What are your values? How much integrity do you have? And what skills do you have? Are you an incredible salesperson? Because if you are, we're going to give you the clinical knowledge that you lack.
Yeah.
And then we're going to rely on your skills and training of the past to win once we combine those two, and those two merge together after training.
And how long did it take you to become comfortable having that technical, clinical conversation with a surgeon?
Fortunately, I was given some really good clinical training, so it didn't take too long, I would say, to feel, well, here's the problem. feeling comfortable and knowing what you're talking about are
Right.
two
You
different
say
things,
the
right?
words, you don't know the meaning.
Right. Like, hey, did I pronounce that right? Right? That sounds smart. I felt comfortable within 6 months. It felt
Yeah.
great. But you're in 6 months or a year, 2 years, your scope of knowledge in that field, whatever it is so limited that you're going to eventually get exposed, right? So you're comfortable. I'm like, hey, we're talking the smack. We're doing it.
Right.
But then they talk about something that's outlandish that doesn't happen that often, and you have no idea what that word means or how to fix it.
Right. Because certainly with doctors, you have a whole nother language, and they like to talk their own language. And so, I mean, 3 to 6 months to be comfortable having what's probably a 30-minute conversation about what the product does, how it works, how it compares to somebody else. That's still pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Because most reps I talk to, they don't want to make a change because they think it's insurmountable. They would think they have to go to medical school or undergraduate in biology or whatever.
Yeah.
And no, you have to learn probably a 30 to 60-minute conversation. Mm-hmm. That single thread, and it's going to get off track.
To kickstart it. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a process. Some things are more clinically deep than others. If you're in the world of oncology and biotech and things like that, you've got to be pretty buttoned up. But like I said, I was just blessed because I had a great training program that I went through. And, as we get older, we get different experiences and exposure to different cultures in business and different leadership in business. And those are two things that are huge for me because they are the foundation of whether or not that entity is going to have a successful team. And so coming from such great background of ADP training and then this startup surgical training, I just assumed that's how the world worked. And then as I got older and went to different companies, I realized, wait a minute, you want to arm the reps with a couple PowerPoints and an hour-long training session, and you think they're going to succeed?
Well, that's it, yeah.
And I know in the IT world, that's kind of what they do, right?
Well, in the IT world, what they do is they pair up the rep with an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the problem, of course, is all the rep can do is get the meeting and introduce the engineer and then close at the end for the next step. And it's like doctors talking for that 55 minutes in between.
Gotcha.
And they don't do very well because they don't understand what's going on.
Correct.
And the engineers focus is talking tech. That's what excites them. It's not convincing them of the problem that you fix and how it will enhance their lives. So what I did is I inversed it. I would do the presentation. I'd let the engineer do the demo, but I would learn what I was selling and why they would want to do it differently and how it was different than the competition. But it's still, it's still, an hour, 2 hour conversation.
Right.
And, of course they could blow me away, but the things that they were talking about blowing me away on didn't matter.
Right.
I'd write them down and I use it as a great reason for a next step.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned a really interesting point. You bring in the expert. This is the technical guru. Yeah. And man, they know everything about the product in a language that I could never even get to, right? But here you are probably in the IT world surveying the room, reading body language, taking notes, listening to their question, and knowing that there's a deeper meaning to the question than just the surface level because we're trained as salespeople, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. It kind of did it work? Because here's the sales guy and then here's the technical guy, and if you can merge them together and if they can play Batman and Robin really well.
Right. That was the key. Like I had the same engineer for 3 different jobs over 12 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that was very beneficial, obviously, right?
Yeah. So you had the mojo going and, we'd have a sequence, like when you're talking and I start to talk, that's my signal that you stop talking. Talking and the customer starts talking, we both stop talking.
Correct.
And
sales 101.
Wow. But you got to understand, then there was no other engineer I ever dealt with that could adhere to that rule.
Okay.
they would just go on and on and on and eat up that hour. And the objective of the hour is, to build interest, differentiate, create enough interest for a next step.
Right.
And if you go down the rat hole of these little nuances that you should talk about maybe 2 months from now, the hour goes like this and you've got nothing accomplished.
Correct. So, and what I've found, because I've overlapped with some of these engineers on the IT side, as well as these biomedical engineers, they love to go down the rabbit hole.
Of course, that's their bag.
Love it.
That's where they feel they add value.
Totally, and they do, but just not right then.
Yeah, it's like bringing an accountant along, and he fills you in next year's tax law that has nothing to do with anything.
Right, but they're all fired up about it, and they want to tell everyone, right? Yeah.
So who does the best in medical? Is it the people that sell probably the renewables, the supplies? Is it the people, the embedded equipment versus the robots, the Da Vinci's? Is it?
So yeah, that's an amazing question. Equipment sale versus the disposable sale. And it takes a different kind in terms of who does better or who is better. It's a different, go ahead.
Maybe better is the wrong word. I guess if you had to do it all over again, would you have done it differently, or?
I would not have, only because, take a capital equipment salesperson, for example. They are hunt and kill, straight up. Yeah. You have this widget, you've got this territory and these hospitals, and you're just hunting. All right, nailed that one. All right, on to the next. Nail that one. Boom, boom, boom. Those people make a lot of money, and they are grinders, right? Yeah. They're not, and I'm not opposed to that. I'm all about that. But I got more enjoyment out of personal satisfaction and enjoyment out of doing the disposable side, because I'm more of a relationship guy.
Yeah.
And with disposables, you're in these procedures a lot of the time, and you're just adding value in the OR, which makes you feel great. They appreciate it. You're having conversations. Hey, what are you doing this weekend? And I know you're laying there with your chest wide open or whatever, but believe it or not, these people are having normal conversations. And so you build that relationship and rapport, and you make some great friendships out of it. So so a relationship type salesperson, because there's so many different kinds of sales guys and girls, that just worked well for me.
Cool. And were you able to get some compounding, meaning you get one doctor to like it? Could you get referrals and introductions to others?
Yeah, if you were smart, you would leverage that. You'd say, Dr. Brian and I have been doing business together for X amount of time. He speaks highly of you. He just recommended I give you a ring. What do you, can I sit in one of your cases? Can we meet for lunch, or whatever the case may be? And then leverage that relationship. In fact, take those two doctors together.
Yeah.
Dinner, right? Yeah. Spend a night out at that prospect's favorite restaurant with your buddy doc, and let them work their magic. Because to what you said earlier, you're 100% right. They love to talk their talk in their language.
Right.
And then what ends up happening is, after a few glasses of wine, they're just in the zone, and you're just sitting there looking at your watch.
For the check.
You're like, dude, is this going to work or what? And then, and then it most times it always worked out. So I was thankful for that.
Cool. Hey, it's been a great conversation. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, you know what? Probably the best spot would be LinkedIn. So it would be linkedin.com/in/Will Richter, RICHTER.
I hope you enjoyed that. It's great to hear other salespeople. You see both commonalities and uniqueness, and that there's many different ways of skinning the cat in sales. That's why I don't really talk too much about, there's only one way to do questioning, one way to look at relationships, one way to do this or that. But the things that you do have to do, you do have to get the technical sale. You do have to talk with them, and they have to want to do that for whatever reason. You have to understand how companies buy and how to keep the ball moving, the direction, momentum, and control of a deal. And if you don't understand that, the deals die. So deals have a lot of similarities, but you also have to allow individuals to sell individually. So I hope you enjoyed that interview. Give everybody an update on the courses. About 6 months ago, I added unlimited one-on-ones, a 30-minute Zoom call with me as often as you'd like to talk through applying the course to your deals. And all of that gets put anonymously into the course. Nobody knows who you are, what you sell, who you sell to. And other people get to benefit from it. So the course now has a network effect, meaning with each new student, the course becomes more powerful. More questions, more situations, more problems solved, more accounts that we get into, more deals won. And so you get office hours, immediate access to 100% of the content. Nothing is gated or trickled out. And you can pay all at once or per month. It's not a membership, though. So it's a monthly fee for 12 months access, so 12 months payments. And make this your year. Time is going by. Whether you order the course or not, the time is going to go by. Everybody thinks, oh, I'll wait. Who's benefited by waiting? The course will pay for itself in 30 days. Honest, you got to believe it. If you apply it, if you do the work, it will pay for the whole year in the first month. So wait. Okay, try and save money. Okay, take $500K minus what you're making now. That's what it's costing you not to join the course, not to apply yourself, not to make this year your year, and to start today. Time waits for nobody. I know a lot of people have been waiting a year. Well, guess what? A year's gone by. You're making $500K, you're making $1 million. You tell me. Becoming better at sales is the fastest, easiest avenue for you to have the financial dreams fulfilled. Because what else are you going to do? You're going to discover some medicine, some medical equipment? If you can, go for it. But most of us, this is what we know. This is what we're doing. How about becoming great at it? How about differentiating yourself from all the B players so you're not a B player? Go to b2brevenue.com. Check out the show notes. Sign up. Give me a call. Or get on my calendar. There's a link right there to schedule a call, 15-minute call to talk about what you want to do. I'll check you out on LinkedIn before the call, so you don't have to fill me in. Just tell me where you are now, where you want to go, and I'll tell you if the course can get you there. And that's my mission. That's my purpose. Check it out. Also, make sure you're checking out the other podcasts. Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, and B2B Revenue Leadership. And there's quite a substantial archive of podcasts here. And there's a lot of hard-worked content that I put out there. I hate using the word content. It just sounds like something. But there's a lot of lessons, a lot of experience, a lot of understanding of what we're doing here in the complex sale. So check it out. And follow me on LinkedIn. I ran out of connections. So don't send a connection request. Just follow. I'm just ran out. I apologize. I'm trying to clean it up, but that's time consuming. We'll see you next time.